Wait, did I freeze?
Nope, you're live.
Oh, I can't see myself. This is weird. Okay. Anyway, welcome to Real Talk with a Vulnerable Angel and Friends. This is episode 23 now. We've been going live for 23 weeks, and this week's topic is I went with when vulnerability is hard. So we're going to go into specifically more vulnerable discussions about vulnerability in particular. In general, we've talked about vulnerable things in various topics, but we're going to dive deeper into vulnerability itself in this episode. I am joined today by my guests, my usual guests, Mike and Sharon. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Good morning.
It's so weird that I can't see myself on Restream, but I can see myself in the YouTube studio. Anyway, you guys will have to let me know if I'm like dribbling any snot out of my nose or
Never.
You'll find out in approximately 6 seconds after the time.
Yeah.
There we go. Before we get started, I have like some kind of life-ish sort of updates based on things we've talked about in the past. I think you guys had previously, or at least one of you did, ask me, because I'd been talking about wanting to leave the United States and relocate elsewhere. And I think you guys asked how my kids were feeling about that and whether they'd be up for going. And at the time I was like, oh, my kids have they're adamant about wanting to stay in the United States. Well, they have certainly changed their tune now, and they do not want to stay here at all. So yeah, this is such a very interesting kind of time for me to see that change of tune. They're recognizing that there's a lot of big changes happening in the United States, and they don't really want to stay here anymore, just like I've been thinking about leaving and selling my house and buying up elsewhere. And so I feel like this past week has been more and more steps towards that. Last Friday, so after the last stream, I finally got around to messaging my ex-husband to find out how he was going to respond to the idea of me selling the house and moving internationally, because I wasn't sure it would impact his ability to see our kids and that sort of thing. And I had no pushback. He was like, that would be great, because for him, it means that he gets his share of the home that I haven't paid him back for yet. So, it seems like I just need to take the plunge when the time is right. I've told my kids that I don't want to leave at least until after my son has finished his summer program in July. And then I guess we'll see what happens after that.
Wow.
Interesting.
So if you move, presumably would the kids come with you then, or would they stay, or what's the plan?
My son for sure will come with me, because he wants to continue living with me rather than with his dad. I did tell him that was an option if he would prefer to stay with his dad. He said he would rather stay with me. So but my daughter is more interested in so my plan is or my intention right now is to move to Malaysia using their special program for rich-ish expats who can buy property there with a program called Malaysia My Second Home, which I've been aware of for years, but just last year they changed the requirements, so it's actually feasible for me to do now. But my daughter is not so keen about moving back to Malaysia, so we're kind of looking at, or we'll be looking at options for her to relocate back to Australia and stay with family for a bit, so she can go to university there and and stuff. So we'll see what happens. Still lots of steps to kind of do in the interim, and see what happens, and hopefully the economy doesn't entirely crash, that my property does not make as much as what I need it to in order to do this, and that the dollar is not crashed. But we'll see what happens.
That's exciting, man. That's exciting.
There's a third option, which is don't move, stay in the house, don't sell the house, and just give it X amount of time. And there's a very good likelihood that California will no longer be in the United States.
Secession takes years, and I don't think we can wait that long.
Well, overthrowing the government we thought would take years.
So Michael does have a point there.
Yeah. The other thing is, like, I've not been working for several months now. I have no income. I have savings to last me, at least until the end of the year, but because I'm very frugal with my spending, and also receiving child support. But I don't want to leave it too long, and I don't know how long it's going to take me to get a job. Whereas relocating to Malaysia, where I would have a decent windfall after buying property, I can have a lot more time to look for work if I do that. So that's kind of, it makes more financial sense. It's not just the political climate of right now.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Good. At least you thought this through, right? So good on you.
So much thinking, and I had a video call with another Malaysian friend this week, a couple of days ago, because I'm like, there's a part of me is like, but what if some people don't want me to move back to Malaysia? And this friend is like, oh no, you'll be fine. Like, everyone will be glad to have you back.
Of course.
So that's where we're at with things. My son, I've been in more conversations with him about things, because he sent me a list of his pros and cons about the differences between moving to Malaysia versus Australia. And I'm just like, okay, I understand where you're coming from with these things. However, if I sell my house in the United States, the money that I make from that would not be enough to buy a house in Australia. So that's kind of where we're looking at with things, So I would still be kind of stuck. And he's 18 in 3 years and a couple of months at this point. So after that, then he can decide what he wants to do next. If he doesn't want to stay in Malaysia, he can go to university elsewhere, or
stay with mummy,
or stay with me. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe he'll end up Malaysia will grow on him.
Maybe. I mean, in my experience, a lot of people that have come to Malaysia, 99.9% of them have fallen in love with it for one reason or another. So who knows? I mean, even if he's apprehensive about leaving his world behind and coming here, as long as he has an open mind, I don't see why he wouldn't be able to acclimatize here.
Right, exactly. Right. I mean, it's still scary. Like, there's still so many parameters that I don't know. But the fact that I've been researching everything that needs to go into this, how much does it cost to store, rent one of those storage lockers to put all of my belongings in, so I can leave that in there until I can find a place to buy, so I know where to send it to, that sort of thing. So yeah, Lego Timmy is saying hello.
Timmy,
how you doing, Tim?
Hey, buddy.
Good to see you. I don't know if you'll be around us long, but good to see. What did I click that twice? That's weird. Yeah, so that's where we're at with things, and hopefully, I'm just hopeful that things will work out. I feel like I think I've talked about this before, that, various things have happened in my life that has felt like the universe has been guiding me in various directions. And this is one of those things that I feel like this is what was this is what the universe is guiding me towards, right? Like, with 3 trips back to Malaysia in the last couple of years, and like every time I went back, it's like, oh, this feels like home, and like friends being like, welcome home rather than welcome back, right? It's like, yeah, I can live here again. That's kind of what it was like every time I went back. So that was helpful for me.
That's how I feel about Ireland. I used to live there as a Mormon missionary for a few years, but it felt like home. Like it really felt. Now, granted, like my ancestry is from Ireland, so it just stands to reason that like it's in my blood. But every time I go back, I just it feels like welcome home as opposed to welcome back.
Yeah, it's really nice to find those kinds of places. I do feel like home here in California as well, but with the various changes in my financial situation, it just feels, like I said, it feels like this is the right time. Like, I've wanted to move back to Malaysia, and it's been great to be in California all this time. This has been a great place for my kids to have grown up and gone to school and that sort of thing. But now my daughter's 18, so she doesn't have to stay living with me if she doesn't want to go to Malaysia and that sort of thing. So it felt like, as much as I'd been thinking about wanting to move back, like I'd been coming up with all these excuses about why now's not the right time. And then I kind of went to this realization. It's like, hang on a minute, but are those reasons to stay in California actually legitimate, or are they excuses? And I kind of realized that they were more excuses because I was scared. So that's kind of, it's been interesting. I don't know that I would have made this decision if not for all of the upheaval that my life has had in the last year, with losing my job and the change of government and all of that sort of thing, and the challenges that I've had with getting work. And it's like so many layoffs in the tech industry and that sort of thing. So it makes it a lot more challenging to get new work for the kind of stuff that I do with the limited experience that I have.
Especially in the Bay Area too.
Yeah.
Where it's tech central.
Right. Because it's also like, with all the layoffs that have happened, and there's that many more workers that are looking for work, and those people have more experience than me because they've already been working in that kind of field. Whereas I've been trying to transition from curriculum development to more hands-on, actual practical experience with the skills that I have. Because there are more roles that have the practical hands-on work that you need to do rather than curriculum development. So that's
it's great that you're planning ahead. Like, one thing that's been on my mind recently is, we always say we're planning to do this, we wanted to do this, but we keep putting it off. Yesterday, I think for the 1000th time, I rewatched Pixar's Up. I don't know whether you two are familiar or have watched it. It's a great film. For our viewers that might not have seen it, the first 10 minutes alone are heartbreaking, right? They're amazing and they're sad at the same time. And one thing that I'm worried about is, we always say that, I want to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. But then life always happens. You see the bit when Carl and Ellie, right? They have that piggy bank, they're just putting money in. And something happens, right? Oh, perfect. There you go. Wonderful. Oh, dude, so nice. My adventure book. Yes. Nice. The fact is, we have all these plans, and life gets in the way for some reason or another, right? So it just goes to show that, if at the end of the day, though, life does happen, but we have to be careful. At the same time, we can't let life pass us by.
Right. Exactly. So, was so great to catch up with all the friends that I have in Malaysia the last few trips out that I've had. But man, it's so different visiting versus being there like full time, and I have more flexibility about when I can see people and everything, you know. Have more time with it rather than having to like schedule in so tightly when I'm seeing everyone. It was that first trip back was so hard to like, I didn't even have time to see everyone that wanted to see me, and I was there for I don't know, like a week and a half. Was that a week? Like 2 weekends worth of time, I think. And was it? Or I don't know, it was about maybe around that time. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Vulnerability.
Vulnerability. Timmy's got another couple of comments. I don't know if he's still here, but he said he's doing good, can't stay, because I pick up my mom from work.
You're a good kid, Timmy.
She found a kitty outside, so we have to deal with that. Very cute.
Bless.
All right.
Please.
Yep.
Thanks for dropping in anyway. All right, moving on. Our questions today are provided by ChatGPT. I just gave it some topics, and it spat out some questions for us to answer. So I think I ended up reordering them from the way that it had listed them for me. But I will start with this question here. What does vulnerability mean to you? And is it easier or harder for you now than in the past?
Anyone would like to go first?
I'll answer the second part first. It's much easier now than it was when I was younger. I've shared this ad nauseum on this channel, but when I was younger, I was the subject of much ridicule. So making myself vulnerable was a risk because it meant I was putting myself out there. It meant I was opening myself up to either prove something, to accept another person, to be the bigger person, whatever, all of which are social risks, personal risks, sometimes financial risks when you're vulnerable. And you can really set yourself up for getting hurt. So it was something I wasn't really willing to do when I was younger. Now I have so many more tools in my tool belt of how to deal with stuff like that. I try to just be open and vulnerable as often as possible because people like your true authentic self. And I feel like that's my true authentic self. It shows empathy, which helps you connect with other people and it builds trust. But also, like, if somebody decides to attack me in my vulnerable moments, depending on the specificity, I have the tools to actually do something about it and to take ownership of who I am, as opposed to letting somebody else exploit that vulnerability for me. But what is vulnerability? What does it mean to me?
I liked what you said earlier about it being like the risk of getting hurt.
Yeah.
I think it depends on anybody's interpretation. Vulnerability doesn't always mean that you're opening yourself up for an onslaught, is it? It's extending that bridge, extending that hand to be open, to be no, I wouldn't say even emotional, just to form that connection, right? So whenever someone says vulnerability to me, a lot of people do assume it's a sign of weakness, particularly with men. However, I think it's the exact opposite. And in my experience, being open with friends, family, even strangers if necessary, it shows that you have that inner strength to be vulnerable, to be open to criticism, to be open to emotional outbursts. And because at the end of the day, if you hold everything in, um, you're bound to explode, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you too have had this experience where either someone presumably from an older generation, they're very used to being very stoic, show no emotion at all, barring positive ones. And whenever they do tend to have outbursts, it's very, very big, right? To say the least.
Explosive.
It's explosive, right? And yeah, so it's all about managing it. And I think that the fact that it's not just between creatives now, but I think the majority of the world being open to criticism and being open to communicate vulnerably, it's progressing a lot more. It's no longer taboo to be, hey man, I'm not feeling so good, or hey bud, can I talk to you for a little bit? It's no longer taboo. It's no longer weird. It's actually encouraged. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I agree with that, but also I think that doesn't necessarily mean that it's easier. So my definition of vulnerability, I guess, is basically anything that is hard or challenging for you, but you choosing to do it anyway. So that's you putting yourself in a vulnerable position. So, like, for example, sharing your feelings with someone who might not react in the best of ways. Financial risks, as Mike said, is an example. Taking a risk to leave a job to try and find something better or start a business. Those are pretty vulnerable things to do as well. But yeah, for me, I'm definitely more in the feeling side of things, sharing feelings where it's really challenging. Those are my most vulnerable moods. Like some feelings, I'm like, that's fine. I'm not actually being vulnerable, even though other people might think that I am, just because there are a lot of things that I'm just like fine with sharing. So my vulnerability is more specifically when this is really hard for me to share. This is so challenging for me to share because I don't know how you are going to respond to it. And so where there's like an element of fear of that response, or fear of rejection, or abandonment, or something like that. I think those are my moments where I'm definitely most vulnerable when those sorts of things are the risks that I'm taking, and I'm still choosing to move forward with it beyond that. And I would say it probably is easier for me now than in the past, but I would say it's probably been like a wave. Like sometimes it's been easier and other times it's been hard throughout my life, depending on what else is going on in my life at the time. So there were probably times earlier on in my 20s where it was easier for me to be vulnerable, and then various things happened that hurt me and made me shut down and close off. So that those things made it harder for me to be vulnerable, and I had to kind of work my way back to being more comfortable with it again.
Yeah, that's good.
Muscle memory.
Yeah.
Goes a long way, muscle memory.
You gotta practice it for sure. It looks like we have a couple of viewers now. If you would like to ask us any questions relating to vulnerability or anything else, feel free to drop them in the chat and we will be happy to answer them for you as well. But otherwise, we will just continue on with the questions that we have from ChatGPT.
Do it.
All right, our next question is, how do you personally decide when it's safe to be vulnerable with someone? That's a good follow-up question to that last one.
I think certain people have, well, let me just talk about Kim for a second. So like when I first met Kim, for those of you who don't know, Kim is my wife. and we first met in an improv class. Now
Oh wow.
we had a shorthand with each other that we developed over the weeks of being in class together. Um, but when I first met her, she was just another person in the class, just like anyone else. Um, and there, over the weeks that we kind of got to know each other, we had a connection that we realized that we were on the same page with each other. Like something weird would happen or something potentially distasteful that everyone else was like, yeah, this is awesome. But Kim and I would look at each other and be like, is,
Hmm.
is it? And I think just having a real genuine, like just a genuine connection with another human being lays the building blocks for trust, because I don't think you can have vulnerability with another human being on a personal level without trust.
I agree.
Um, and so once I developed that shorthand trust with Kim, then we could start to be a little open with each other and a little bit more vulnerable. And then that trusting each other with that little bit of information makes you go, oh, I can trust them with this much of information. And then you trust them with that. And then I can trust you with, let's see, where's my hands? This much information, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I think it's all incremental, but it's all based on trust.
Yeah,
Mm.
I definitely agree with that trust piece as well. I think that how do you know that somebody is trustworthy? Definitely there's the small things, and you can see how they respond to, like, something quirky, if they seem to be encouraging, non-judgmental. I think that non-judgmental piece is really key for me. If I can tell that someone is not going to judge me for shitty things that I've done in the past or whatever, then it makes it easier for me to easier for me to open up to them about things that are harder for me to share. And what else? If they are opening up and sharing things from their side of their own life that is hard for them to share as well, is one of the things that builds trust for me and safety. Because it's like, okay, it's not like tit for tat or whatever, but that it's a mutual kind of growth thing, and it's not like in the like a friendship or mutual kind of connection. And I'm like thinking, but you don't really have that in a therapy patient setting. You're not getting those personal stuff,
always,
right?
A, there's always exceptions to the rule,
Yeah.
but B, and that is an arrangement built on this is what it needs to be.
Yeah, but you can still have find therapists that you do not feel safe to open up to, right? So you still have to have, the first few or several appointments to build that level of safety and trust to find out that if they are a good fit for you. Because if they're not, then you need to go find somebody else. Because I don't think there's any therapist that is fit for anyone. As in everyone in the entire world can go see that one therapist. You have to find that kind of right fit, just as you would in romantic relationships, friendships, coaches, anything. So yeah. How about you, Sharon?
I think actually, if I can answer this with a flip of it, basically, it's very interesting in my recent experiences over the past few years. Where when do you realize that we maybe to stop oversharing? If I can, because for example, to our viewers who might not know, I fell ill several years ago, and part of that illness involves short-term memory loss. And when that happens, there can be confusion and anger because you have no control over what's going on. And for many years, this is pre-COVID. I could very rarely move around the house myself or to leave the home. And it became my experience that whenever I reached out to people, because I was craving contact, people would just, I think, were put off by it because they were like, they would either not reply at all, or some would just go like, "Bro, you're being kind of weird," and that really really hurt. And to be fair, at the time, I didn't realize how pushy and needy I was coming across until I could step back and read past messages, and I'm like, "Oh, I am being a bit cringy." So so basically, it does take a lot of self-awareness as well.
Mhm.
So there is a point of being vulnerable is to, in my opinion, is to be self-aware.
Mm.
And that is something I think most people don't know, because obviously, whenever we think we're opening up to someone, we're like, oh, I'm showing vulnerability. Maybe this person will engage. But at the same time, do we know that we're putting people off?
Mm.
So it's a tricky kind of balancing act to do.
No, for sure. Yeah, I'm sure there have been many situations in the past where I've put people off, and even when I was living in Malaysia, I know that was something that happened for a while. Somebody wrote to me anonymously about how it was bothering people. I'm like, what the fuck? Why do you have to send this to me anonymously as well? Like, obviously that changed. Otherwise, I wouldn't be thinking about moving back
There's
there, right?
irony there in telling someone that they're being too vulnerable from an anonymous point of view.
I don't know. It was like, I don't think that it was specifically you're being too vulnerable. I think it was more just the way that I was kind of not understanding cultural differences and how I was talking about it on Facebook and stuff. So
yeah, I think it's tricky because people tend to confuse being vulnerable and being clingy as one and the same. Which I don't think necessarily is the case. It just means just being open to communicate. But for some people, being so open 24/7, that's that's a culture shock for them, and they're just like, yeah, this is nice, but small doses, please. So.
For sure.
I also think there's a difference, and this is a thought that I'm having in real time, so I haven't articulated it quite yet. And I know I'm going to get some of the terminology wrong, so apologies for that. But I think there's a difference between being vulnerable and talking about your feelings.
I
agree. This is going to be an off-the-cuff example. So again, apologies for the crude nature of this, but picture like a 14-year-old kid, and they're in their bedroom, and they're with one of their other 14-year-old friends, and they're talking about how brave it is for you to be open and vulnerable, when really you just spoke up to the teacher and said, I need to use the bathroom. I don't know. Like, it's a crude example. It's a crude example, but like, I think I hope that there's a string of truth or a thread of identification that you guys can help.
No, I get it. Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about celebrating every little victory, no matter how small. So there you go. Teacher, I need to go to the bathroom. Off you go. All done.
I guess that could be vulnerable for some people if they are uncomfortable, like making a request to an authority figure or something. But I do understand what you're talking about as
or
well.
Even
Mike.
just like one person says to another person, I really like, maybe like the color of someone's hair, or maybe, I don't know, whatever. I really didn't like your hair. Oh, that was so brave of you to speak up and say that, because I didn't have the guts to do something like that. You were like, and again, crude example, but I feel like people confuse vulnerability with communication.
Yeah.
And it sounds like people confuse being vulnerable, in my opinion, with what's going on in the current political zeitgeist with being vulnerable with main character syndrome. Like if you guys understand me, main character syndrome, in the sense that I'm the main character of the story. I have to tell you, everyone, how I'm feeling about everything at a certain time. Not to say everyone, but just in terms of the recent poppings up in social media as well. So there's definitely two sides to every coin. So it's at the same time about when can you be vulnerable with someone compared to when can you take a step back and not overshare. So there is two sides to every coin.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we do have some more comments in the chat. All right, I'm going to scroll down.
Hello,
here.
chat.
So my dad is in, and he says, knowing self is key to being vulnerable because you know your core better. That core recognizes belonging here, having purpose, and a likelihood of support from the unexpected based on experience.
Wow, that's very articulate.
You have any thoughts or comments you want to share? Happy to move on to the next thing.
Add to that, knowing yourself is key to being vulnerable because you know your core better. I think if you're still in the development years, you may think that you know yourself better, but I think those around you may be able to see through some of your austere that you can't acknowledge yourself.
Right, because some of that is ego protection, right? You might think that you are this way or that way, but other people can see you in a different light sometimes than you see yourself. One of the things that's interesting for me as I go through, I've been going through this book called Never Search Alone, and working with a group of other job seekers to kind of decide, help. It's like a support group kind of thing to help us go through this, looking for work together. And one of the activities that we've had to do is putting together a document that covers the things that include our strengths and weaknesses, what we like doing for work, and things that we don't like doing, the things that we must have in our next role, and the things we must not have. We really could not stand working with those kinds of circumstances. And then we have to take this document and share it with other people and kind of get their feedback on what we've written, to kind of help us see they can share their perspective on things as well, and help us see things that we might not have thought of, to help us fill out this document. And I shared it with one of my friends recently, and he was like, "This all looks good to me, and it seems like you have put a lot of thought into this." So I'm like, clearly I know myself very well, but I didn't need a lot of help with this stuff. But then there was one thing that he was like, I had in my weaknesses something about how I'm not very good at looking in the long term and planning ahead, long term kind of stuff. And he was like, really? Because you seem to make decisions and things work out. I'm like, yeah, I make decisions, but I have no idea where those decisions are going to lead me. I just make decisions and hope that they're going to work out. And then he was like, well, you can frame that as a strength. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Right.
It is. I mean, if you break it down, it's like having the willingness to take a leap of faith, right? Most people don't have that in their arsenal.
I'm pulling up my document on my other computer so I can read how he framed it, because it was very good. Because he framed it in a way that's very good to describe as you're pitching yourself to employers and stuff. So he said, I make confident choices in ambiguous situations with limited information with successful outcomes. And I'm like, yeah, I do. I do that. So I think it's maybe an intuitive kind of thing. I'm just I know things will work out if I move forward with this. And even if I don't know all the steps that are going to get me, and I don't know what my outcome is going to be, I still know it's going to be better than whatever, like better than not doing anything and not acting on the current circumstances. So yeah, that's
awesome.
like, but yeah, it was like it's been interesting to kind of have people being like, oh yeah, you're just great, you don't. It's like, I can help me to find the things that I don't already know about myself.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I wish more people had that, not sense of adventure, but just kind of belief in oneself. That things will okay. I mean, as long as you put in, do the work, you put in the research, everything will be okay.
I think what helps spur me on with that sort of thing is that because I've had enough successes in the past where things have worked out even when I didn't know what the outcome was going to be, when I just made a decision, that's helped me continue to kind of act in that way. Yeah.
Good. What about you, Mike?
Rephrase the question, or repeat the question, please.
You have any additional comments?
Yeah, I think just on if we can piggyback just on her kind of feeling that, you know, that everything will be okay as long as you put yourself forward, and, you know, planning. I mean, planning's. How do I phrase this? We'll continue. We'll continue.
All right. We do have a question from Veritas, which so welcome back, Veritas. I don't know if you're still watching, because it looks like we just have one viewer right now. Yeah, Veritas came back last week as well, Mike, when you weren't here. Great. So yeah, it's great that he's continued showing up.
Keeping us on our toes.
He was, but it was very good. I will come back to his question after I go through my dad's comments first, because I kind of I think my dad's comments will be, because they're not questions, I can just bring them up. Yeah. And also because I think it's just my dad watching right now, so hopefully Veritas will be back when I actually hear him answering the question. So my dad also says, I call that love, or more specifically God, creator, source. I think that was in response to something that I said earlier, or something one of us said. Vulnerability allows your truth to be. Yeah.
That's a nice line. I like that.
My dad also answered to the last question that we had. How to know when it is safe to be vulnerable comes to knowing the difference between fear and love. Real love requires facing fear. This requires belief that real love / God always wins. And continuing on, any fear we have makes us vulnerable. Any fear we face confronts the fear to expose your truth.
Interesting.
And then he also says that he agrees with you, Mike. I don't know what this was in response to, but development of our core is a work in progress.
It was in reference to knowing yourself as opposed to having an outside source knowing you better.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. Well, hopefully Veritas will be back to hear us discussing this question. So what is the benefit of vulnerability? I think Mike touched on this earlier with the authenticity aspect. Vulnerability allows you to be your more authentic self, and that draws more of the right people to you. More people who get you, more people who are kind of on the same wavelength as you, who enjoy being part of what you're putting out into the world. I think that for me is one of the benefits of vulnerability.
Mike, what do you think?
I'm gonna do a different take on this question. So if you have something, I'll have you answer first.
Yeah, I mean, like in terms of my experience, being vulnerable is it's in some ways it's mental and emotional preservation, in the sense that being vulnerable allows you to be open. It's to regulate your emotions, for good and for bad. Like, if the let's say if by being vulnerable, it allows you to decompress. It allows you to let out any negativity that might be holding within you. Because, as I'm sure both of you know, and perhaps our viewers as well, whenever you hold something in over time, it might not be a day, a week longer, but it will grow and it will grow and it will grow until a point where it literally just blows off the roof, and something bad will happen. So it's all about, in my opinion, it's all about self-regulation. So yeah. So continue, Mike.
I like
I
that.
I think there's something in just the sheer fact that Veritas asked the question, that it also presupposes that there are people that benefit from not being vulnerable.
Mm.
And I think that's worth exploring as well. Like vulnerability,
Interesting.
I don't think. Well, I personally believe the world would be a better place if everyone could be vulnerable with each other. I mean, let's be honest, the world would be a much better place if we trusted each other, which is what vulnerability is predicated on. But I think there are some people that either can't be vulnerable, won't allow themselves to be vulnerable, or are more comfortable keeping that stuff to themselves. And I think most of these people, this is just me speaking off the cuff. I have no medical science to back any of this up. This is just Mike's personal opinion based on his life experience. I feel like most people oh shoot. Now I can't even remember what it was I was going to say. All that preamble. I think it's best for people to be vulnerable, but I do think there's a certain wall that people feel comfortable with just not being vulnerable, and there's that protection comes with that.
That's what I was thinking. That's the benefit to not being vulnerable is an act of self-protection in my mind.
Yeah, it's very tricky as well, because if we kind of prefix people with having certain roles in society, family, like for example, a lot of people I know, they can be like, it's usually the man has to be more kind of stoic, and people get put off by it if they're not.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really depends.
I think we talked about that a little bit last week. I think it was last week, maybe a previous stream, about women who are not used to men opening up, and so then they get all judgmental and weirded out by it, right?
Yeah, because I think I might have mentioned that previous to me falling ill, I was very gung ho, very go lucky, happy. But I remember, like, after I did fall ill, and coming back to Malaysia, and then COVID hit. So obviously I was feeling a lot more vulnerable, in the sense that I just craved connection. And I was reaching out to certain friends who I believed I was close with, and some didn't reply, some did. But I remember there were a couple of instances where people were like, all right, bro, like, I hope you're doing well, but this is kind of putting me off / creeping me out. And I had no self-realization. I was like, oh my God, like, I've turned into that guy. And I felt so embarrassed. Like, I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But yeah, it's a yin and a yang kind of thing.
This is making me wonder. Like, I know that I have had those moments where I've creeped people out and stuff as well, but I think that you can go too far in the other direction, where you start second guessing yourself more and thinking, oh, I need to phrase this thing that I want to say in just the perfect way so that it doesn't offend somebody or it doesn't creep them out or whatever. And then that can take its toll on you as well. So that's another thing to take into consideration in those kinds of situations. Like, yes and no, and just find the right people who are not going to judge you for not coming across in the most perfect way in the thing that you want to say, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, my dad has another couple of comments for us here. So he says, making decisions is the catalyst that moves one past the fear in the first place. Another term I often quote, love is a decision. Yes, my dad does use that quote a lot. Love is a decision. I agree with that too. Like, you can feel, I mean, it can be a feeling, but to the act of love to maintain a relationship is you have to decide to continually act on that love so that it sticks and stays. You guys have any additional thoughts on this particular comment?
No.
Oh,
I think it's spot on.
Next comment, not being vulnerable has short-term safety called avoidance, maintaining the status quo. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that hits the nail on the head there.
Mm-hmm. All right, next question.
Next question
from ChatGPT. What's an emotion you struggle to express and why? Anger, for me.
Really?
Yes, I'm terrible at telling people when I'm angry. I don't know
How often do you get angry?
Huh? More often than you might think. Because I don't express it, so nobody knows when I'm actually genuinely angry. But yeah, there's definitely been a bunch of times where I think because the thing is, I know like anger might be what I'm feeling in the moment, but I know there's usually something deeper than that, and I want to analyze and understand what's behind it before I am ready to express myself. Because I think because I know that anger has the power to ruin and break relationships if it's not expressed appropriately. And yeah, I think that's a big part of it. And in order to express anger in a way that will be received well, that's a challenge, right? To express it in a way to make sure that the other person knows that you still care about them, especially if the anger comes from, you know, being angry at something that somebody else did, right? Like, you can't just go and say, you made me angry because blah, blah, blah. You also need to say it, kind of phrase it in a way it's like, it's not, don't blame the person per se. Just talk about the impact of the action.
Well, this is also coming from a healthy, well-adjusted individual. None of us are.
Yeah, so that's yeah. Anger is the big one that's the most challenging for me to express, I would say.
Ooh. For me, I'm kind of stuck between two emotions. Probably, I don't know if probably gratitude and self-contentment.
Oh, interesting.
Probably because I am very aware. Sorry, that I am very, very lucky to be here in more ways than one in terms of my social upbringing and my health scares and what have you. So I am very, very grateful to do that. But it's a very, very tricky thing because at the same time it's basically I always feel that I should be doing something more. You know, in the sense that in terms of the financial investment put on me. Should I be doing something more? Should I be in a different place in my life? So even though while I am very, very happy and very content, I do feel like sometimes I should be doing more. So yeah. What about you, Mike?
I'm getting hung up on the word struggle
Mm.
because I feel like whenever I feel an emotion, like whenever an emotion takes over me, like I would hope that I'm decent at expressing, letting people know that, you know, I'm angry, I'm scared, I'm sad, let's be honest, everybody knows when I'm happy. I I actively suppress anger.
Same, which is why it's hard for me to
Yeah,
express it.
I don't get and that's the other thing, is that I don't get angry very easily. I really don't. I get frustrated, which I guess is a form of anger, and I express that. But like I feel like anger is an extreme,
Yeah.
and I just don't get that extreme. Now, I will, in the spirit of vulnerability, an emotion that I'm struggling to express today is happiness. Today is I'm just I don't know. You know those days where you have that internal sadness that just overtakes
Oh yeah.
everything, and there's
Yeah.
nothing
Nothing you can
causing
do.
it from the
Yeah.
outside. Like I'm not being affected by anything that's making me sad. It's almost as though like your body produces serotonin. Your body produces blah blah blah. Your body produces fecal matter. Like
Mhm.
my body right now is just producing sadness, and and it has for the past few days. So it just needs to do what it does, and then work it
Disperse.
out of my system.
Yeah.
I think honestly, like the fact that you acknowledge it and you're aware of it, that's half the battle done.
It took a while, to be honest. And this is something that's happened to me my entire life, is that multiple times a year, I would say maybe like 2, 3, maybe 4 times a year, but 4 times a year that's rare. I just get these intense, profound periods of sadness, and maybe they'll last a day, maybe it'll last 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And there's no way of knowing. When I was younger, I used to call it getting blue, because my mom told me I wasn't allowed to feel depressed, that I wasn't depressed.
That's fucked
Yeah,
up.
yeah, yep. And so like throughout the rest of my life, I noticed that I would just get these deep, profound periods of sadness. And it wasn't until getting married and sharing this part of myself with Kim that we came up with, because it took a while for me to, because I never thought about it. It was just
Yeah.
something that I felt. And so when you're with the person that you love more than anyone else on the planet, and you're acting weird, they start to think that they did something
Yeah.
that's
No.
making you act weird around them. But that's not the case. And it took a long time, and it was very awkward for a little while, whenever I would get like this, because I couldn't articulate it, because I never stopped to think about it before. And now we have a shorthand. We have a code word that we use. I'm not going to share with anyone what that code word is, but we have a code word that, like, when that profound inner sadness starts to manifest itself, it's just all I need to do is say the code word, and instantly,
She knows what that means. Yeah.
She knows.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I have a couple of comments. So first of all, my interpretation is, because you're mom said, you know, that you were not allowed to be depressed. These moments of sadness, however long they last, might just be those repressed feelings from the past coming back. And I say this because I watched Bill Burr's most recent stand-up special recently, a few days ago, and he talked about that. Like, he didn't think that, like, he would, you know, he kind of laughed at depression and stuff in the past, but then he kind of reached a point where he allowed himself to sit and feel like all of the feelings that he had been repressing, and then and like went through this moment where he just like was sitting in his own solemnness for like 3 days before his wife noticed and like commented on it. Like, what's up with you? And he's just like, I'm sad. Just like, she'd never, like, he was like, this is probably the first time I've ever expressed an emotion to my wife the entire time that we've been with her. It's like, oh my God. That's like the impact of feeling like you have to suppress, you know, parts of yourself for many, many years. Like, it eventually catches up with you and you have to sit and deal with it at some point, I guess. I mean, or not, and then see what happens. But, you know, I think one of the things he kind of talked about with this is about how if this is one of the reasons that men don't live as long or like die earlier and have heart attacks at more at a higher rate than women do, because men don't deal with their emotions in the same way. They don't have the same outlets, and so
for sure.
Yeah. So it was an interesting stand-up special, and I don't know, go check it out. I think it was on Hulu if anyone has access to that. Hang on, let me look up what the title of it was, just so that I can properly.
It pop up on Disney Plus, but I can't remember the title of it.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. Drop Dead Years. So that's what we were saying. The drop dead years are the years that men start having heart attacks.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So that's kind of where that comes from. So yeah, it was an interesting special to watch, especially given like our recent topics that we've been talking about.
Sure.
Specifically with, you know, masculinity and that sort of thing. So yeah. All right.
You guys remember the story of, oh geez, was this in the 90s? The mid to late 90s, I want to say. There was a child who had been so sad for so long. And maybe this is an urgent in urban legend. Maybe it is, but there was a kid who died from sadness. He, as the story goes, I can't remember the certain aspects of his life that were plaguing him with sadness, but he stepped off the school bus on his way home. He stepped off the bus, and as the story goes, he just kind of like either fell down or laid down or whatever, and his body just shut down because the levels of joy or happiness just hadn't been present for so long, and he just fell down and died. Now again, this might have just been an urban legend, but I feel like I've heard variations of this. I know there was a guy who lived down the street from us. His name is Ray Endy. His wife Joanne had passed away from, I think it was cancer, and she had only been dead for maybe less than a year, and then he followed in her footsteps. Just he was so grief stricken, so grief stricken.
Yeah.
That he also
Yeah.
died from sadness.
Yeah.
So it's an
I think
interesting.
I think that the mindset mentality is definitely there, isn't it? It's if it weighs heavily on you. If I have to look into it, like both my parents were medical doctors, and they always did say that 9 times out of 10, if you feel ill, odds are you're going to be ill. If you feel great, if you just think it's a bit of the sniffles, odds are your body would fight back and you'd be on your feet the next day. So it could be up here. Yeah.
How much of all this is psychosomatic? I don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah. There's definitely a balance between the mental and the physical, right? So
For sure.
But also, this is the part of the conversation where you guys tell me just how brave I am for being vulnerable.
I think you're looking for the yes, queen, slay,
Yes,
queen, yes.
Oh my.
Yep.
Oh my. All right. My dad has left a few more comments, so I'll bring those up. There you go. He says, thank you for these supports to my thoughts. They mostly come from a lifetime of avoiding fear and learning from my mistakes. Any authority I seem to show is from lots of mistake making.
Yeah. We have to make mistakes in order to learn, don't we?
Same for me. I feel like every lesson I try to impart is being based on mistakes that I've made and what I've learned from them.
They always say wise men learn from their mistakes, but wise men learn from others. I am not the wiser.
I am not the wise man.
Yeah. He also says, fear of anger keeps us from understanding the purpose of anger as feeling that shows a sign of being. Anger as feeling is a symptom. When repressed, it prevents learning.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a hard emotion for me to know how to deal with, but I do try to, like I said, I try to understand what is behind it. Like, what can I learn from this? Why am I angry in this situation? And what can I do to change the situation or react to it in a different way in order to cope better with whatever it is that I'm dealing with right now.
Sure.
It's so hard sometimes because the stuff that makes me angry is it's usually combined with other emotions as well. Like, that's not the only emotion that I'm experiencing. But yeah, the times that I have been especially angry have generally been because somebody else has done something that has made me feel hurt. Like, how could you do this to me? How could you abandon me? How could you ignore me? That's the kind of thing. And I might not react that way for every situation where it has a similar kind of outcome. It usually depends on what I want from the connection and the context of that relationship as well.
But if I may, I actually think that in some ways, anger can be a good thing. It can be a motivating force.
Yeah.
Right? Like, for example, just off the top of my head, if you get angry at maybe people assuming something of you, if let's say you think that people think that, okay, so imagine you were back at school and you had a presentation coming up and everyone's like, oh, that kid's going to be awful. He's not going to be able to do anything. That anger can be motivational. If your teacher goes, listen, don't worry about it. I don't think you'll get the results, but you do what you can. You'll be like, screw you, dude. I'm gonna show every one of you off.
The number of times that I have accomplished things out of spite for somebody saying that I was not capable of doing something, or that they thought I shouldn't do something. There's definitely been, anger has been the first part of it, and then it's like spite. It's like, I'll show you how sure you are about me.
So in some ways, it's I mean, anger can be extremely beneficial as long as you can control it. It doesn't consume you, but if it can motivate
Right.
you,
Yeah.
then it could be a good thing.
Depends on how you channel that anger and
Right.
what you do with it, for sure.
Right, yeah.
Piggybacking off of what you said about spite,
Yeah.
I once had an improv teacher tell me, Mike, you're a great comedian, but every
But-
instinct you have is wrong.
Every what that you have?
Every instinct you have is wrong. I was like,
Well, you can just
Wow.
I'm a functioning adult, sir. So I beg to differ. So.
yeah. And I mean, that was in the early days when I was still like learning how comedy works and how improv works. And you know what? I don't have a problem throwing her name under the bus.
Do it.
If you guys want to know, her name is Megan Nuringer.
Screw you, Megan.
Yeah, screw you,
Yeah,
Megan.
screw you, Megan.
She later moved to LA to be a big shot on VH1, and we all know how that turned out.
Yeah.
Because we don't know who she is. Well, I mean, I think I don't know if I've talked about this on the stream before. Probably I have, but like my
I'm just gonna pop to the loo real quick.
no problems. But like my novel
Doesn't
that
mean
I
flop to the loo.
so maybe it depends on what he's doing there. Yeah, like my novel that I wrote, a big part of my motivation for that was out of spite, because somebody told me that if I am not a big reader, that means that I am not capable of writing a good book, or I'm not capable of even finishing a novel or whatever. And I was like, fuck you, or screw you, I'll show you. And that was one of the things that really spurred me on to write and publish my novel. I was like, you're wrong about me, I can do this.
Do you know the story about Leonard Skinner?
You might have brought this up in the past, but let's.
So Leonard
Please go
Skinner, very famous American rock band in the 1970s, like very famous. Sweet Home Alabama. Yeah, one of their big hits. So Leonard Skinner, when all these guys met, it was in high school, and they were all just friends, bandmates, just kind of idiot kids. And they had a gym teacher who said, you group of kids will never amount to anything in your entire lives. And that gym teacher's name, Leonard Skinner. So they named their band after him.
Okay, that I was not actually aware of. That's I love that.
Jared, I just told the story of how the band. Do you know the American band Leonard Skinner?
Of course I do. Yeah.
So, do you know where they got their name from? Or
No, I do not.
Did you hear the last little bit of what I just said?
No, I just had giggling. That's all I had.
So these kids all knew each other in high school, and they were friends, and they all hung out together. And they had a gym teacher who said, you group of idiot jerk-off losers will never amount to anything in your entire lives. And that gym teacher's name was Leonard Skinner.
You're joking.
So they named their band after their gym teacher who said, you will never amount to anything.
That's insane.
I don't think I would ever be that bold to like call
the balls on
someone
them
out like that, right? Like, even with my memoir, I have not used people's real names, right? Like, I'm just like, I can't be. Yeah, I still need to protect their identities and stuff. So, yeah, I don't think I could be that bold.
Yeah, so Leonard Skinner got their name as a tongue-in-cheek tribute to Leonard Skinner, a physical ed teacher at their high school. Huh. Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sharing bits and trivia. I love that.
Yeah. Well done, Mike. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, my dad's next comment is, depression when looked at is suppressed anger. A child's anger tantrums is often stomped on because we all fear anger. Have you had moments like that where I think Mike's already kind of talked about this a little bit with his sadness, depression stuff, where you are angry or had a tantrum as a kid and like a parent or some other authority figure stomped on it because they themselves were afraid of how you were reacting.
Can we get a definition on the term stomped on?
Stomped on. So I think my dad means like trying
Maybe
to
shutting it down.
Shutting it down. Yeah, trying to get it to stop. Yeah.
I think in terms of for me rather, in a Southeast Asian culture, whenever a child throws a tantrum, it's something that has to be quashed very, very quickly because this is something like you don't be a spoiled little brat, grow up, and if you don't curb it quickly, it's something that will encourage the child, whomever, that, okay, this is acceptable behavior. I was at a 5 before, tomorrow's going to be a 10. Right? So maybe it could be that.
Did you have any outbursts like that were quashed, or was it more just like you knew that was just not okay, so you just didn't do it?
I mean, haven't we all? I think at some point, whenever I've had a tantrum, I remember my parents telling me off was either if we were in public, so obviously, that's one issue, and B, if I was being disrespectful. So, yeah, I mean, like those are the only main the two instances I could think of. But other than that, it's just, if you don't quash it quickly, it's going to be reinforced to the child usually that, okay, this is okay, or I'm getting attention, which is also a positive. So let's dial it up for them.
Kids also quickly learn how to use it as a manipulation tactic.
Yeah.
If you throw a tantrum long and loud enough, then you get the thing you want.
Yeah. If you shed a few tears, why not? That's how mommy and daddy will give you that thing you want.
Depending on how the parents respond to it, for sure. Because their parents are training them that, if they do that, then they can get what they want because the parents give into it, right? But if the parent responds differently and does not give into it, the child does not learn that lesson and, instead learns, oh, this is not going to get me the thing that I want, so I better not do this. I can't remember any situations where I was the child who was, having a tantrum or whatever and got stomped on by a parental figure. But what was coming up for me is an incident with my own kids in a grocery store, and they wanted some juice or whatever. I wasn't even going to the store to buy very many things, but we're out of stuff, and one or both of them were having a tantrum, and it was so overwhelming for me that I couldn't take it, and I was like, you know what, if you're going to continue to behave this way, then I'm not going to buy the juice that you want. And it continued. I'm like, okay, I guess we'll put everything back and we'll leave. And so I ended up leaving the supermarket with nothing just because I couldn't handle and deal with that situation. I think it was like shortly after moving here to California. So there was already so much overstimulation, probably within all of us, like not just my kids, but like me as well. There's like so much going on. So, there are certain situations where we're more prone to acting out because of overstimulation or, whatever else is going on. So I think one of the lessons is to make sure that all your other basic needs are met first. Like, are you hungry? Are you tired? Those sorts of things. Once you've satisfied that, you're probably going to be able to be a little bit more calm. Yeah,
for sure.
Also, I'm not so sure I entirely agree with the first statement your dad makes of depression when looked at is suppressed anger. I think it can be, but I don't think as a complete thought that's all
it's not solely. Yeah.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. A lot of people who suffer from depression are usually angry at themselves, aren't they? Maybe
Yeah,
they couldn't
there's
handle this, or they
so
blame themselves.
it's a
It could
long
be suppressed anger.
variety of reasons for sure,
Right.
but that would probably can be one of them.
Chemical imbalances are
Yeah,
some of the
Yeah.
more common.
Right. Yeah. If you look at the chemistry alone, then yeah, sure, understandable.
yeah. My current depression is more contextual with not working stuff, but I'm on medication again, so I'm handling it a little bit better now than I was previously. Like
No,
I
but
can actually get tasks done now.
but like I said, the fact is that you guys have already acknowledged and identified the source of your uh, depression or anxiety. The fact that you're taking steps to keep it in check, that's amazing. So good for you both.
Yeah, well, it helps that I have a therapist that I've been seeing basically weekly for 2 years now. So, yeah.
Actually, I have a question. What happens? I don't know what this has happened, but what would you do if you're out and about just on your daily adventures and you bumped into your therapist out in the wild, so to speak? Would you just be like, "So you want to go for have a free session?"
There's
Or
anything wrong with acknowledging, hey, John, my therapist, how's it going? Hey,
yeah,
kids, this is my therapist. Say
yeah,
hi. I don't
That
think there's
is
anything wrong with
that's
that.
that's never happened to me, but I've been in group sessions where a therapist has addressed it or talked about it. It's come up with like, because everything is confidential in this group setting and that sort of thing. If we do run into each other in public, I'm not going to acknowledge how I know you. It might be like, just a general hi or whatever, but there's no acknowledgement about
right.
what that relationship dynamic is.
Mm. And it always cracked me up when I was younger. I'm sure this happened to you too as well. When you're just out and about and you bump into a teacher, but in wherever you're just like they have a life outside school, like so,
Meanwhile, I had school teachers who came to watch me do stand-up comedy.
oh
So,
wow,
and the reason that like that kind of popped up is because I was thinking about the stand-up comedians that I've watched who have talked about their therapist coming to see them do stand-up comedy as well. And they talk about that in their shows. And I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know. I mean, I have shared some of my stand-up clips with my therapist, or I've shared some of the jokes like in therapy, but I don't think I've had a therapist come to see me perform before. Just school teachers.
actually, Mike, since we're on the subject, like, have you noticed that whenever you perform improv, has it found that it elevates and alleviates whatever's on your mind? If you're feeling stressed, does having improv kind of let all the negativity out?
I think it depends on what is ailing you in the moment.
Mhm.
Usually, yeah. Dominica, I'm sure you have an opinion on this as well.
Oh yeah. I've definitely had moments where improv has absolutely helped change the mood that I was in. My main group that I performed in for years, Yum, our kind of theme that was thematically about vulnerability. We would share monologues about our vulnerable experiences from our real lives, right?
Oh
And
wow.
and we generally, our suggestion from the audience would be like, we'd ask the audience, do you want a rose or a thorn? Meaning, do you want something like a positive experience that I will share with you from about the monologue, or do you want so that's the rose, or do you want a negative experience? And I remember there was one performance that we had. I went in like really hoping that I was going to get a thorn because I like was so angry about something, or there was something really negative going on that I really wanted to talk about. And the audience was overwhelmingly rose. And I was like, oh, okay, I was not prepared for this, but I will find a way to express like a more positive thing. And that genuinely like changed how I was feeling because the audience asked me for something more positive than what was actually I was dealing with that day. So, or that week. So yeah, absolutely.
I also feel like there's the old adage of fake it till you make it. And I think that's a big part of improv as well, is that it's not that you're faking a smile when you're feeling sad, just for the sake of it. It's that you are getting out of your head for X amount of time. You're getting out of your own circumstance because you have to think and play other characters. You have to think as though you're this other character. And whatever the scene demands of you, are you angry Joe, or are you like slap happy Sally, or whatever? You have to play these characters as realistically as comedy will allow for it. So you're literally getting out of your head. There's this game that there's plenty of games that we play, but there's this one exercise called 5 Things. And so I say to Dominica, name 5 songs that have never existed before.
Off the top of my head,
1.
A Window to My Soul.
2.
Jumping on the Ceiling.
3.
The Light in My Heart.
4.
And the Halo Around My Ankles.
5 things. 5 things, 5 things, 5 things. 5 things. Great. So the mental well, actually, let's do this on you, Sharon. Let's do the same thing. Name 5 things you would never give someone for Valentine's Day.
A strap-on dildo.
1.
Why not? That's fine.
Well, a hollow cake.
2.
A Chewbacca costume.
3.
A cologne that smells like farts.
4.
And a cardboard car.
5 things. 5 things, 5 things, 5 things. 5 things. Great. So this exercise is 2 things, right? It teaches you that 1, there are no wrong answers, and that whatever reality that we set is now the reality that we're going to exist in. We're not going to second guess it. Name 5 countries. Oh, Bluto. Bluto's not a country. Pick a different one. Well, guess what?
It is now. Yeah.
Cool,
so
man.
what I did to interrupt, I was like, why wouldn't you get I should have done that.
Yeah.
I was demonstrating bad improv.
Yeah. But the second thing that this does is while you are trying to think of 5 gifts that you would never give someone for Valentine's Day, how many times during that exercise did your brain go to your financial situation right now? None. How many times during that exercise did you think about the political state of the world right now?
None.
Right, and so on and so on and so on and so on, right? So it forces you to stay in the moment, and you forget about your woes, your ailments, even your happy successes. Because you have to play that character. So, how much does improv help in getting you out of a bad mood? Sometimes, well, like I said before, it depends on what's ailing you. But sometimes it helps a lot.
Yeah, because it's forcing you to be in the present, isn't it? So yeah. Very interesting.
Especially if you're the one who's performing and on stage. If you're in the audience, maybe not as much necessarily, because it's easier to be distracted if you're not the one who's actually thinking and doing it.
Yeah. And also, it's
Yeah.
usually just really funny. You know, sometimes you just find yourself laughing on the sidelines at something that your teammates are doing, or maybe that you find yourself in the middle of as well. You're just having
Yeah.
so much fun. You just get
Yeah, I mean,
lost.
I suppose it's even if you're not performing, as long as you're actively listening,
Yeah.
That's
then
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
Active listening is so important in improv. If you're not actively listening, then you do not necessarily know how to respond in a way that makes sense. Because if you're not listening, it's like, I'm sharing something really vulnerable right now, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I just farted. That has nothing to do with what was just said. Yeah, so active listening.
But I thought you should know.
Yeah, sharing is caring after all.
I just had an affair yesterday. But what? You're out of, yeah.
You too, eh?
Building
Welcome
brick
to Affairs Anonymous.
building brick by brick is like one of the, I guess, cornerstones of good improv, when you're relating to the thing that was just said previously, and building on it. Yeah, like if you're just agreeing with it, you're not building anything. Yeah.
What if you're saying something that's so left field? Like I think it was you, Mike, that said that in improv that there's a thing called yes and. What if your partner or someone else says something that's so over it and you're just like, I have no idea what to do?
So, I mean, that happens all the fucking time. All the fucking time. So
the fact that you rolled your eyes, you're like, oh my god, the trauma. Oh, that bastard.
so, I mean, if you're playing with an experienced improviser who knows what they're doing and you've seen them and played with them for X amount of time and you know that you can trust this person and they do that, that means they're trying to fuck with you. That means they want to throw you a curveball to see how you're going to react. How are you going to respond to this? So you can respond in a playful way, or you can throw them under the bus and say like, "Oh, Charlie, those edibles are starting to kick in, aren't they?" You know, it's a big part of improv is justification. Why did this thing just happen? Why did I say the thing that I just said? Why am I feeling what it is that I'm feeling?
But if it's coming from a less experienced improviser, it's probably because they just thought of something funny that they wanted to throw out there. And it doesn't, like, so those moments can be frustrating. Which is, I don't know, maybe why Mike rolled his eyes.
Well, I mean,
the history,
I mean, there was a woman that we used to play. Well, we didn't play with her, but like she would show up at the jams.
She would play with us.
We played with her. So she would show up to these jams. Her name was Barbara. She was off stage. She was the most level-headed, calm, logical, rational human being you'd ever sit down and have a conversation with. On stage, she was ethereal. Nothing made sense. Her whole thing was, give me a suggestion real quick. Just give me a suggestion.
Suggestion as in what? Just a word or
hair?
Potatoes. Yeah.
Hair potatoes. Oh, there's hair in the potatoes. Oh, how do we get the hair out of the potatoes? Oh, these potatoes have so much hair. We need to become one with the potatoes so that we can enjoy the hair. Oh, where do we put the hair? Oh, I now am a potato who has hair. That's how Barbara would improvise.
Mike, that was amazing. That was a tour de force presentation. And scene.
Wow. Wow.
So that's how Barbara would improvise on stage. And during this one particular jam, my close friend Josh, he and I were called up on stage to be in the scene with her. And just before we got the suggestion, I turned to Josh and I said, or maybe whatever, one of us turned to the other and said, we have to make Barbara look like she's a fucking genius. And so I think the suggestion was unicorn or something like that. And so she's running around the stage going, the unicorns, we need to be one with the unicorns. They transcend gender. They're trans, it's not they're transgender, but they transcend gender. These unicorns. And so I turn to Josh and I go, we gotta find the fucking unicorns. And so we're just running around stage, trying to support all of her crazy. The audience understood, like she didn't know really what she was doing. But it's like supporting your teammate can be challenging sometimes.
Yeah. I remember there was a time that I was struggling. I was still like, kind of early days of improv, like with, between 1 to 2 years of experience. But like enough experience, so like I was feeling pretty good about my improv skills, but like finding it challenging to improvise with less experienced improvisers. And I had a conversation with one of my improv mentors about it. It's like, how do I deal with this kind of difficulty or challenge? And his advice was make the other person look good. So yeah, however inexperienced they are, your job is to make the other person look good. Even as shitty and sucky as they are, justify the crap out of whatever it is that they're saying or doing.
Which seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
Because if you think they don't know what they're doing, I know what I'm doing, I'm just going to take care of myself. Like that thought process permeates every aspect of life, right? You go to work, you go in social situations, in personal relationships. They're the crazy person. I know what I'm doing. We throw each other under the bus all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it seems counterintuitive, but really what happens is by making the other person look like a genius, taking care of your scene partner, you are supporting them. So you are exhibiting team member strengths, but then also you make yourself look good by
just by being in proxy.
Yeah, there's another word that I'm looking for, and it's not coming to mind right now, but like just the sheer fact that you are trying to bring them up, it's a byproduct. The byproduct is that you look like $1 million.
Yeah, it can be challenging sometimes though. Like some of the improv that I find most challenging to watch is when I see, someone come into a scene and negate everything that has already been established, and was like, why are you doing that? And then so how do you support that kind of situation where you need to help them justify the fact that they just negated everything that was already done?
Dominica, I got you this puppy.
Oh, what a cute cat.
Oh, but I just said it was a puppy. His name is Felipe.
Oh, but it looks so much like a cat. It's got whiskers and everything.
But it's not a cat. It's a puppy.
That is the ugliest cat I think I've ever seen.
Okay, well, I guess I'm going to go take him inside the house.
Yeah.
So you're homeless, dude. You're homeless. There's no place for you to go.
So you can see how like much more challenging it is when there's like negation in a scene. No one wants to see that.
I think that's what I like about when I was young, I used to watch Who's Line. And the fact is that even though they brought, so you can see that in their eyes, just like, screw you, dude, but they went with it. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Well, like when the logical thing, like when, I don't know, when you see someone, geez, what's the situation? Somebody is sick and they have to take castor oil, right? If you're in a scene and somebody's trying to feed you castor oil because you have some
rabies or something.
Is motor oil okay? Will that substitute be all right?
Castor oil? Sure.
Wait,
But like the logical thing is for your character to say, I don't want that. Do not put that in my mouth under any circumstances. But comedy requires that person now take the castor oil or the motor oil. Oh, I switched it out. Now you can have motor. It's funnier to see someone truly believe that motor oil has healing properties when in fact it's toxic.
Yeah.
And so you want to see the person in anguish. You want to see how they're going to deal with it. Because here's the thing, if they don't eat the castor oil or the motor oil, nothing happens.
I had a scene, and I can't remember what the context for it was, but I remember I had a scene where I was like, I had a hot coffee in my hands, obviously space object wise, and I took the lid off and I poured it over myself. And I was like reacted like viscerally, like, oh my God, it's so, But
and that's what we want to see.
Yeah, exactly. It makes the scene more entertaining.
It's the whole Chekhov's gun thing, right?
Yeah.
You can't mention it and then not use it.
Yeah. All right, we've kind of strayed off topic with all this improv talk. I love talking improv, but I'm gonna bring back some of my dad's comments.
See how I perked up from my sadness?
Yeah, you're like,
improv helps. Okay, my dad's next comment is: feelings are neither right or wrong. We can react or evaluate, looking for love solutions. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Here's his explanation of stomp-on. So stomp-on is to repress because of own fears of the unknown.
Interesting.
And he says, most fears aren't real, but projected worst-case scenarios that are highly unlikely. Yes, and our brains will spiral.
I mean, I think that's why we all struggle with those childhood fears. Like, for example, I'm sure you two at one point. I mean, for me, I was terrified of clowns when I was younger. And the fact is, in what scenario in my daily life would a clown randomly show up? So yeah, it is the worst case scenario, isn't it? That always pops up in your mind.
Did you watch it when you were far too young?
Yep.
Fair
Tim Curry screwed me in. Yep.
I did not watch that version of it until much later, until after the more recent one came out, I think. So
really,
yeah,
oh, wow,
yeah, that's right. All right. So my dad's next comment says, I can't speak for others. I have struggled with various forms of depression most of my life. I seem to trace back to my fear of blowing and not choosing love. Fear of blowing.
Maybe blowing his chances, maybe, or blowing his opportunity.
Pulling a knife at Christmas on my father and blacking out is something that he did. Okay. What happened only comes from third parties. My fear of own shadow self, if I let my repressed anger out, is dangerous.
That's a valid fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, I think we've all been in situations where we took something knowingly or unknowingly, and we realized that what we do when we're blacked out, it's terrifying because it's not what we would normally do. So but in some ways, I think that they have to happen so that we know where the line is, if that makes sense.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Sometimes.
I don't know that I've had any situations where I've done something and then blacked out. And I mean, I'm sure I have a lot of history that I've blocked from my mind, but I can't, obviously I can't tell you what they are because I've blocked them from my mind. But I don't think any of them are incidents that I was blacked out afterwards and didn't have any memory of what I'd just done. I don't think I have any of those situations.
I black out
despite all of my
between the hours of 2 a.m. and 9 a.m.
Nice.
That's a different kind of blacking out. All right. Let's move on to our next question because, we're coming up to an hour and 45 minutes pretty soon. So our next question is, what's something you wish people understood about you, but you find hard to say?
Hmm.
Dominique, you want to go first?
Like how hard it is to feel understood by other people, maybe. Like I always feel like I have to over explain myself in order to be understood itself, like that in itself, right? Because I've had so much history of people misunderstanding me or misinterpreting me, because so many people want to try and read between the lines, and come up with their own interpretation of what was being said. And being autistic, I'm generally more literal, and there is nothing between the lines. So I've struggled so much with being misunderstood, and then feeling like I have to over explain in order to get the point across. And I know that that's a really hard thing to kind of talk about, and especially when it seems like people don't want those long explanations. So that makes it harder to kind of talk about and provide long explanations for things.
What about you, Mike?
Probably my physical ailments. I have 2 herniated discs in my lower back.
Oh shit, dude.
There's a lot of stuff at my job at Lucky's Bar that requires like bending and lifting and stuff like that. So sometimes customers will, ask me to, do this or blah blah blah, whatever. It's all involved anyway. And they just look at me and assume, oh, you're a strong man. To which I usually point at I shake the belly fat on my stomach and I say, whatever gave you that impression? But also,
Zing, 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 zing.
I'm a guy, I guess. I'm male. That by itself does not require or does not necessitate that I am a strong person. I'm not, and in fact,
at least not physically, right?
There
Strong in other ways.
There are things that physically people need for me to, or they ask me to lift for them, and I won't, and I can't, because I'm not going to continue to injure further my injury.
Like chairs in the bar, they want you to lift those chairs.
Or to change the keg, so you got to bring the keg over and reattach the tap over. Obviously, that requires a lot of strength. Or taking bottles out for inventory and stocking them back up.
There's that, but then there's also like people who order food and sit down in the booths. I pass them their trays of food, but they expect me to like bend over and put it onto the table. Now I understand that's how most servers do, but I don't possess that ability. So like I'm going to pass you your tray of food so that you can take it out of my hands, and it's just this, people get really uppity about that. Hey, can you pass me your tray, your empty tray, and I'll take it out for you? And
that is such a weird thing to get uppity about. Like,
but people are weird.
I'm very happy to pass my tray to somebody. Like, I want to help people out. It's not a big deal to me.
It's only when they start getting weird about it that I have to kind of like joke about it and say, "Oh, thank you. My herniated disc appreciates it." And it's like one of those things that like I shouldn't have to. I don't feel like I should have to.
I mean, surely they've been to like other restaurants where they have to bust their own trays of dishes, right? Like there's plenty of places like that. You're still doing that halfway. That's true. So doing a halfway version of that is not a big deal to me. But you're right. There are people who don't even they believe they're shit on the table as they leave without a tip for their servers.
I know, but in my experience, whenever that happens, I don't think that they're intentionally trying to malign you. I mean, in my experience, it just seems that they don't think about the other person. There's no self-awareness about them being in the immediate space. So it's not something hostile or negative towards you per se. There's no awareness, spatial awareness of where they are. So it's not on you, it's on them.
Oh, 100%. Oh, 100%. It's just that lack of like cultural awareness of some people are just not I don't know. Yeah, some people have,
considerate.
Some people have scars that you can't see, and people
That's true.
just don't take that into consideration.
That's right. What about you, Sharon, for the answer to this question?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think for me, it's self-care. I think is very, very not really discussed about so much with not just our generation, but among other people. I think I think we've mentioned, or at least I've mentioned, my father is someone who is very, very no emotion, very stoic kind of person, and I wish that and for me, I'm not that at all, and I just wish there are times where we all could do with some me time, some alone time. But at the same time, we want to connect with others as and when we have the social energy to do so. But I wish one thing people understood is that when we want alone time, we don't have to announce that we want alone time. We don't have to explain ourselves that we want alone time. If, let's say, but they'll keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And I just wish if saying once, like, I'm unavailable, that would be enough. But sometimes people don't quite get that, and it comes to a point where it comes to a point where you're just like, for fuck's sake, guys, like, and you don't want to explode, or you do it because you just want them to leave you alone later on. So I just wish people understood boundaries when people need to recharge.
Yeah, when people want an explanation, when you don't need to give them one, like you're allowed to have that time to yourself without explaining why you need it, right? It should be enough to just say, hey, this is not a good time for me.
Done.
Or, and it can mean a multitude of things. It could mean like, I'm doing my laundry right now. It could mean like, I just need some space to think, to gather my thoughts. It could mean, I'm working. It could be, you don't need to give an explanation in those sorts of situations. But some people are just like, but you have to tell me why, so I can give you a reason to say that you're wrong, so that you will do the thing that I want you to do instead.
It's really interesting. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It just this memory kind of popped up when I was working for Astro. Astro is Malaysia's version of Sky Sports, or like it's a huge channel conglomerate. I was working there as a writer, and I remember there was one day. Another writer didn't come in, and we were wondering, well, like, what happened to her? Is everything okay? Our team leader came up and said, I heard from her, she's fine. She's just not coming in today. And we were like, what's going on? And he's just like, she's just, she didn't give an explanation, but it's personal. And all of us just went, great, no questions asked. And I just remember that moment of that kind of click going off, like, they just, okay, fine.
Yeah. It's so hard sometimes when you want that explanation. Like, I've been on that, like, tell me why. I've been that person as well.
Tell me why.
Sharon, it's funny you share that story, because a few hours ago, scrolling through social media, come to find out that one of my coworkers at the bar quit, and I had no idea that he quit the bar. Not only did he quit, but he got a job working at a different bar, and he kind of went off on people on social media, and he said, I'm happier at this other bar. Please stop asking me why I left Lucky's. And I was like, huh. So like, there's something there. Like, there is a reason that he doesn't feel comfortable sharing with people. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what his reasons are.
It's his business. It's his business, right?
Business. And he's happier elsewhere.
No one is owed an explanation.
Yeah.
As much as you might want one, as difficult as it might be to hear that you're not entitled to that explanation.
Very true.
Especially if you're someone who is prone to giving those explanations, even when it's not needed or even wanted. I'm more of an explainer. Okay, my dad has left another couple of chat comments, but I am going to bring... I'm going to bring up our last question first, and then I'll get to the chat comments because there's not that much. And we're at 1 hour and 55 minutes already. All right, so last question. Have you ever opened up to someone and regretted it? And if so, what happened?
Mike, have you got anything? You look like you're in deep thought.
Pondering.
I'm trying to think of something. When was the time that I opened up to someone, but then it turned out to bite me in the butt?
I mean, like, I've got something straight in my mind, so I'll go with that first, if you guys don't mind. Like, there was, so I went to the Savannah College of Art and Design in America, and met a wonderful bunch of people there, and I stayed in touch with a classmate of mine, but we were never particularly close. We never really saw each other outside of class. But I remember, like, you know, she was very, very smart, very articulate, and over time we just naturally became pen pals. And this occurred for many, many years after I left America, and it was nice. Like, I would message her, she would message me. It could be something like a little joke to just sharing, and it wasn't. It wasn't anything romantic at all. It was strictly strictly a friendship that we were just sharing ideas. And unfortunately, after, let's say, with my illness and my mother passing away, I did looking back on it, it was a cardinal sin. I would message her, and every day, if she didn't reply back, normally we'd message each other about once a month. But because I was feeling low, I sent her messages on daily without her replying, just saying, hey, I'm feeling this. The next day, hey, this happened, I'm feeling that. And I remember for like 5 days straight, I messaged her, and these were long messages. And unfortunately, I remember, like, she replied back. She's like, oh, I'm glad to hear from you. I hope you're okay. However, this is making me, your communication is making me feel very uncomfortable. And until I read that line, I remember directly in that moment, I was like, that never occurred to me at all. I had no self-awareness. And until that hit me, I was like, oh my God. And I just felt so bad. And I immediately replied, like, ironically, immediately just saying, hey, I'm so sorry. I hope you're doing well. If you want to message me once a month, once a year, never again, that's fine. I apologize. But like, the fact is, when we're in the moment, we don't have that self-awareness, and it can bite you.
Did you ever hear from her again?
Once or twice, but then after that, I took it on myself to just let her go. I think because it wasn't fair on her, and I don't want to. I mean, like, so we've been pen pals for years at this point, and it was lovely. But if it got to a point where she felt obligated to message me and everything, it's just, I mean, there's no point. Like, it's the same thing of being in a relationship with someone who doesn't want to be in the relationship. What's the point? You know, that person's going to be unhappy, and you're going to be holding on to an idea that no longer exist. So in some ways, cutting it off now, where you still have those positive memories and you can let that person do their own thing, do that. Oh,
yeah.
What about you, Mike? Anything's coming to mind yet?
So two things, actually. One, I think, is in the spirit of the question. And then the second is kind of something that your story kind of made me think of. This is not an example of me opening up, but it's it's very similar to your story, which is years ago. I went on a date with this woman. Why am I all blurry?
There you are. Oh.
Focus.
There you go. There you go.
I'll just keep it like that. So years ago, I went on a date with this woman. She's an opera singer here in New York.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. And I was excited. Why wouldn't you be? It's a first date with somebody who's really cool. And so I told her that I would call her, leave a message on her phone, and say like, "Hey, here's the place, whatever." So I called. I left a message. I knew that she was at work, so like I wasn't expecting her to pick up. So I called. I left a message. Hey, we're gonna go to this restaurant, whatever. And I remember there was a detail that I forgot to leave in the first voicemail. So I called back. I left the second detail. And then this is where my memory gets a little fuzzy. Was there another detail that I forgot? Or did I just think it would be funny to leave a third voicemail? Whatever happened, I continued calling and leaving voicemails. And I left, it was something
12.
like 17. I think it was.
Oh my
I think it was
God.
like 17.
Oh, brother.
Because I just thought it was the funniest thing. And it happened organically. It's not like I sat down and planned of like, hey, I'm going to leave you like 17 voicemails and this is going to be the funniest thing ever. It was one of those things that like, it just started organically. And I kept leaving more voicemails and they just got weirder and sillier. And eventually, I think before I could leave the 18th voicemail, she called me and she goes, Mike, stop.
What the fuck?
Stop. This is freaking me out. And I was like, what do you mean it's freaking you out? It's a funny comedy bit. I'm just leaving you voicemails like an obnoxious person who isn't self-aware. And it was like,
That's so funny.
because the bit was that I was playing someone who wasn't self-aware, but I kept calling myself out in the voicemails for not being self-aware, right?
That's hilarious.
So I thought because I acknowledged it, I just thought it was really, really funny. And then she went on to tell me that she once had a stalker because, you know, she had a stalker who would do stuff like this. And it freaked her out. And she was like, I don't know if I want to continue on with this date with you. I apologize. We went on the date and that ended up being our first and last date. Because I ended up not liking her. It was a whole thing. Anyway, so that was a story that has nothing to do really with the question. But to answer the question.
Good story.
Well, is it though?
Yeah.
You're being vulnerable and sharing with us an experience where you were a douchebag.
When you were stalking, yeah.
I was exhibiting stalkerish behavior, and I thought it was funny. So,
all for the bit. Stay in the bit. Yeah.
You guys know I'm a big like comic book movie nerd. X-Men have always been like one of my favorite superhero teams. Still are, really. People would say, well, what about Ninja Turtles? And I'm like, well, I think it's really X-Men, if I'm truly being honest. So in the early 90s, like 93, 92, 93, somewhere in through there, I was so obsessed with the X-Men that I had somehow convinced myself that I might actually be a mutant.
Be an X-Men, yeah.
So one day I kept staring at myself in the mirror. Like after I got out of the shower, I would just stare at myself and like, all right, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? I'm going to manifest something. And it's going to be amazing. And talk about psychosomatics. I convinced I have this memory. It's not obviously not real, but it's manufactured. I have this memory that by concentrating hard enough and staring at myself in the mirror, my eyes turned red. I swear up one side and down the other, my eyes turned red. So that Sunday at church, after church was over, I pulled two of my best friends into an empty classroom, and the lights were off. And I was like, guys, I have to talk to you. Something crazy happened to me. And I'm sure they were gonna like ask, I don't know, like who touched you or something.
Yeah.
And my voice got real quiet, and I got so serious. And I was like, you guys, this might sound nuts, but I think I'm a mutant. And so my two friends were Jared and Andy.
Oh.
And there was this just pause of like, what? And Jared, like being a good friend, Jared was like, okay.
Okay, buddy.
Andy, not so much. Andy, without missing a beat, started running around the room, screaming at the top of his lungs, Mike thinks he's a mutant. Mike thinks he's a mutant. And in
That's
that
hilarious.
moment, I was like, I'm
regretting this decision.
none of this was real. It was like I snapped back to my senses, and I was like, oh no, what have I done? So, yeah, that's
Wow.
the first and the last time I got vulnerable with another human being.
First and last time. That's a great story, though. That's true. No. I feel like I have a similar kind of memory, I guess, but mine is not like it's probably a memory of a dream that I had rather than something that I manifested and believed to be true. I was like, there was a time I was like, I could fly. Like, I genuinely thought I was actually flying like a superhero. I don't know if that's something I've ever actually shared with anyone.
But you never
like
confided that with anyone?
No, I don't think I had ever confided that with anyone in particular, of thinking that was real or a memory that I had. I don't think I ever did. But I did have a time when I was doing stand-up comedy in Malaysia where I talked about thinking I was a mutant because of a bone spur that I had in my femur that I had surgery to have removed. But I was like, I'm a mutant because I have this extra bone growing out of me that is not meant to be there. I can't remember how the joke went. I'm sure it was at least an actual joke and not like me just saying something like that.
Well, I mean, you could say technically it is a mutation. So there you go. Technically speaking.
Maybe.
Technically speaking.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how I got there. I have no recollection or, what. Anyway, I had a bone spur. It was like, I don't know, 2.5 inches long. No, is it that? No, I don't think it was that long. 1.5 inches long, maybe.
Look, size doesn't matter. It's how you use it. Okay, remember that. Believe in yourself.
So yeah, and how it was used is it was challenging walking upstairs because it would like push against the muscle. That's painful. Yeah. My answer to this question, I'm sure there have like plenty of experiences of this, but the one that comes to mind most, I'll say, opening up to an ex-partner of mine about being bisexual and how that was used kind of against me in a way of like trying to force threesome situations that I was not comfortable with. And he wouldn't listen to me about my boundaries and, just wanted to, have so many threesomes that I was like not into. And it's like, if you love me, you'll do this for me. And yeah, very, very unpleasant stuff that, yeah. But I mean, it's hard because like I'm openly bisexual now, and I don't feel like that's something that I should hide, but it's like I should be able to be open about that to whoever if I want. So it's more just the frustration of how it can be used against me, to try and, so that somebody else can get their jollies off, which is not remotely satisfying for me. It might have been fine if it was somebody that I was also into, or, someone that I wanted to be involved with. But when you're forcing that kind of situation just because you want to get your rocks off, then you're not respecting the other people that are there. Yeah, unless it's all consensual from everyone, then nope, you suck. Don't do that to people.
I don't know. I think it kind of boils down to the ultimate male fantasy, where like the straight male fantasy, where like, I'm such a dude, I can take on 2 girls at once, like that kind of thing. But yeah. It's unfortunate in the sense that this is the sexual fantasy that's kind of shown to us from an early age. Like, if you want to be a man, you can take on more than 1 girl at once. But yeah, it's tricky. It's just something that stays in you from a young age.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like the fantasy itself is bad. You can be into that. That's not a big deal. It's just how you handle that situation. And if that's something that you want to do, make sure you're doing it with consenting partners where everyone is interested in doing it. Don't like force a situation. If there's any hesitation, right? Like, that's not consensual. So yeah. So that's my answer to that question. I'm sure there are plenty of other examples I could give, but that was the first one that came to mind. All right. So that was our last question. I will bring up some more of my dad's comments, and then we can end things because we're already at over 2 hours.
It's gone quick. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. We've been trying to keep it at around the 2-hour mark. So, all right. My dad's comments here. A few more. So anxiety is future fears expanded to worst case scenarios. Quite often, yes. Depression is past or own history believed without all the data.
I think that would be more anxiety, wouldn't it? Because anxiety, you're almost you're living in your own head about what you can't control. Depression is something that's already happened, presumably.
Well, that's kind of what he's saying, isn't it? Like depression is the past or your own history. So stuff that's happened in the past.
But without the data, that's more anxiety, though, isn't it?
Without all the data.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, with that part. Yeah. I don't know, maybe.
Because I think with anxiety, it's usually into something that you can't control necessarily, right? So with let's say your past history, it's in the past.
Yeah, but you might have a recollection of your past, but not have all the information about what happened from the other person's perspective. And so it's like coming up with different scenarios about what happened without like getting that clarification from other people, maybe. And yeah, but anxiety is definitely more future focused. Okay.
I think depression and anxiety are so complicated that it's hard to succinctly say depression is this, anxiety is this, because there are so many avenues, there's so many caveats, there are so many perspectives, and it's too complicated. I think it's hard to actually make a definitive statement saying it is blank.
Right. Fair.
Yeah. But the overall, I think, is like the idea that anxiety is more you're worried about something in the future. Depression is more about something from the past. Not always.
Even with that, I mean, anxiety isn't always worrying about something about the future. Sometimes it is just a raw emotion that isn't connected to the past or the future.
Anything. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Next comment from my dad. He says, my apologies to Veritas and the panel. I took over with my points today. The theme is one I connect to. My greatest fear is being too successful at times.
I wish I shared your fear, Frank. I do wish I shared that fear.
I have genuinely also had that fear.
Really?
Like, I'm just like, but yes, I'm like, what if I succeed at this and then I don't know how to handle it? And so then I will scale myself back and not pursue something because I'm afraid of the outcome being actually something positive and something I want. I was like, ooh, how will I handle that?
I think one thing I've heard is that if there's a goal you're aiming for, what happens when you achieve that goal? Will you still have that drive after that?
Yeah, there's that kind of thing. It's also like if you have too much success, for example, like, you know, if I got famous like tomorrow for, you know, maybe something I shared on social media went viral or something, you know, because it happens to people, you know, the huck to a girl or whatever.
Huck to
viral, right? So that sort of thing is out of your control, right? But then that you're subjected to like the more potential abuse from people who don't like how you became viral or who don't like what you represent or whatever. So it's not always like, it's not all positive outcomes that can come from that kind of success, right? There's like there are downsides to it as well. You can't be as anonymous as you might have been previously because there are more eyes on you. And then it also, like, once you have some success, then people expect more of you to keep doing like better and better, right? Whereas if you like feel like, okay, but if I don't achieve it, then I can just stay comfortable where I am and don't have higher, like I won't have other people having higher expectations of me going forward or wanting to know what happens next, or, you know. So, yeah.
But at the same time, like if you achieve something, would people assume, okay, you've achieved your thing, you're done? What happens if you defy expectations and go one step further? Is that not there?
No, people expect more from you once you achieve things.
Yeah.
So this is something that I'm currently kind of like struggling. I don't know. It's on my mind with this show of like, I'm working my ass off to try and make it sustainable and successful, whatever success is, whatever that looks like. But then there's this idea of like, wait a second. Speaking of wait a second. My mom's trying to get into my Apple account, so she needs the code.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, sorry.
Mama.
There's time for it. Yeah.
Okay. So, but yeah, I mean, like,
Okay.
so what happens if my TV show gets notoriety, or if somebody, you know, me living my own fantastical dreams, what happens if somebody from NBC happens to get their eyes on it and they say, hey, this is a great idea. Here's somebody doing Whose Line Is It Anyway? But it's not called Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's an established
Fresh IP. Fresh IP.
network television. And like, I don't know how to do that. Can I do that? I don't know. Should I just quit now?
Yeah.
And say, hey, I did it.
Yeah.
I lived my dream for 5 episodes.
The fear of success, of then not being able to live up to those expectations of what people think the next step is, and then just embarrassing the fuck out of yourself.
I mean, there is that, but there's also you've had your dream, right? As Mike said, his dream is to get that show onto syndicate television. Once you achieve that, do you rest on your laurels and go, okay, my dream is done, life is good, I'm content? How do you start a new dream? Do you know what I mean?
For me personally, or for just the general
Well, I mean, since we're using you as okay, so your show is on TV, all right? You're doing well. Presumably, it'll be renewed for the next calendar year. So, how do you push yourself to not be static? How do you push yourself to go one level above?
On the current platform or on like a larger?
You tell me. You tell me.
Oh, shit. Hold on. My mom is. Yes, allow. Jeez, fine.
Mama.
Popping up. All right, hold on. What? Sorry.
You're fine. Mommy comes first.
I will interrupt and talk about something like related.
Yeah.
So what was coming to mind to me is like, you reach some level of success, but then like if you don't continue doing things, then people wonder what the fuck happened to you. Like, for example, what the hell happened to Sean William Scott? Like, what's he doing now?
I mean,
I used to watch
still doing shit,
a bunch of. Is he still doing
stuff?
Yeah,
I mean, he's still on, like, well, to be fair, he's on remakes of, like, what was that cop movie with Mel Gibson and Danny Glover? Lethal Weapon, Lethal Weapon, yeah. He was on the remake of that, I think.
I forgot about that.
I'm gonna see. Look up the most recent thing that he did.
Well, I know he was in Bulletproof Monk. Not Bulletproof Monk. He was in Bulletproof something with Chow Yun-fat.
Bulletproof Monk. No, yes, that was Bulletproof Monk, and that was 2003.
Oh, okay.
So the most recent thing, yeah. Okay, so the Lethal Weapon series was 2016 to 2019.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Wait, he's in The Wrath of Becky in 2023.
I've been wanting to watch those movies. There's Becky and then The Wrath of Becky. The first one stars Kevin James as a KKK racist skinhead who mentally, physically, and emotionally abuses this woman named Becky. And it follows her struggle of getting away from like this KKK skinhead clan member guy, whatever. And so I get the sequel, Wrath of Becky, I believe follows her journey taking out like these racists.
Okay.
That's cool, man.
I guess I was not aware that he was doing any of this stuff.
Nice.
I had not heard of that. Yeah, I think the most recent thing that I have seen him in was from 2003.
Which was?
Wait, there's a new American Pie movie coming out. Is that real? Or is that a fake?
It's probably just got Stifler's dad. Not Stifler's dad. Jim's dad. It's probably just got him in it, as far as I know.
No, it's listed under his movies and shows. I don't know if this is real, like, because maybe it's an AI that's come up in. Anyway, so 2003 was American Wedding, Bulletproof Monk, and Old School.
Old School, that's right.
I think I have all of those on DVD because I used to be really into his stuff. This is why I'm like, I didn't even know that he was in anything else recently. He's been in Ice Age movies.
The point remains is that his notoriety has fallen from the public eye.
It's fallen. Yeah. He was in Jackpot, which I wanted to watch.
That looks really
that's an Amazon Prime. Yeah.
Really
that was last year. So at some point I will have another access to. Oh no, wait, hang on. He was in Trainwreck. No, that's a different. That's
sure.
not
To
the
answer
one
your
that I thought it
question,
was.
for me, I don't know. I don't know. It's one of those things that you don't know until you get there, and I haven't gotten it, so I can't. I don't know. Sometimes it's you gotta figure it out. It also like you have to reevaluate and ask yourself, is this still important to me?
Well, I believe you'll get there, sir. Don't worry.
Well, we'll see.
All right, next. Well, hopefully we have time for a few more comments, and then we'll finish up. So my dad says you all had very deep thoughts to consider. So
we're very deep people, Frank.
Thanks for knowing, Frank.
Yeah, man.
We are all mutants or monsters. I have a dimple in my finger that could have been a sixth finger. Insight, when used positively, takes us beyond human. That sixth finger thing is true. I remember him showing me this and being like, oh yeah, that's kind of creepy. Because it's like he has like an extra fingernail growing out in the middle of his little finger.
Is that Frank's way of telling us that he could have been an X-Man, like an extra finger?
No,
Yeah,
he would be a six-man.
All right, my dad has another anxiety comment. Anxiety projects the false data into the future. I'm coming from PTSD breakthroughs. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking with that stuff. Is like your anxiety of the future is based on experiences that you've had in the past. Sometimes anxiety and depression tend to be intermixed, so it's hard to separate one from another.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is also likely or common. And then the anxiety is about having to make a decision. Making the decision is the catalyst, what I said before. So there you go.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. All right. That's all the chat comments. We made it.
Nice.
And 25 minutes over the 2-hour mark. So that's okay. All right. Yeah. Next week, I think the next topic I have is something to do with, I have a set of questions related to like past romances, I think. And then after that, I don't have any specific topics lined up for us. So if you would like to suggest any any topics for me to get some questions for us to discuss in a future live stream, please feel free to drop us a comment on the video itself, and I will compile some ideas and questions if you have those suggestions for us. Would love to have that audience suggestions to make this show what you want it to be. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, feel free to do that, and so you can get notifications for when we're going live. We usually do this every week around the same time on Thursdays US time, Fridays post GMT time zones, or post Atlantic time zones, I guess. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and feel free to drop us any questions or comments for future streams. And yeah.